Good afternoon. Thank you for attending DLCV's Disability Rights Expo. This session is all about maintaining a Social Security disability benefit. We've entitled it Keeping a Social Security Benefit Once Approved. What we're interested in doing here in this session is helping you understand what it takes to keep the benefit. So we all know that it probably took time to get the benefit to begin with. Some cases take longer than others and require appeals and so forth. But once you get it, you've worked hard, you've got it, and you've got to know what to do to keep it. So we're going to talk about that. Now, it's very important to understand that you will be reviewed at some point. So I guess you could say it this way: disability benefits are not necessarily permanent. They may end up being permanent, but it must be reviewed periodically because they have to determine if you have medically improved. Even though we know lots of conditions won't experience improvement, some will, and they don't know which. So they will review you. It'll either occur a year or two after you've been approved, maybe 3 years, 5 years. The latest they would approve is 7 years. And that would be somebody who they expect will not improve. But regardless, you will be reviewed at some point. Now, what happens is they send you a form, and you have to be on the lookout for it. A couple of tips. When you get approved, if you can remember to keep your award notice, it's the letter from Social Security that tells you how much you'll be getting and when it will come and so on. In that letter, if you can find it, is a paragraph called Things to Remember. And it will say right in that paragraph within how many years you will be approved. So then you can anticipate it, okay? And it's very important that you make sure that your address is current with Social Security. And I've known people not to update them. The letter comes, they didn't get it, and Social Security figures, you know, they didn't respond, and the case ends up ending. In other words, the benefits are stopped. So you don't want that to happen to you. So keep your case updated as far as your address. And then, you know, secondly, it's important to keep your medical documentation up to date. In the same way, when you were applying, it was important to have good, solid, continuous medical evidence of your case. To be reapproved, so to speak, you want to make sure that you continue to have that type of evidence available for them to review. The best way to do that is to continue seeing your treatment providers. Now, I understand that in some cases, there's nothing more that can be done. The situation is sort of, it is what it is. You've learned to adapt. You're disabled, and you've come to terms with that, and you've gone about your life. And that's good. But even once a year, preferably twice, but at least once a year, you need to be touching base with a doctor that treats your condition and make sure that they continue to keep it documented so that when these reviews occur, there's ample evidence that the problems are persisting. Okay. And by the way, if you have any questions along the way, I hope you put them in the chat box. I should be able to see that, and you know, we can answer them as they come. So keeping your medical evidence current is crucial. And it's just crucial that you keep up. So for example, if you have a mental health condition and you've stopped seeing a therapist, you know, they're going to wonder why. Or worse, if you've stopped seeing a psychiatrist. And I understand that some people don't like to take medications. or maybe there haven't been any prescribed, but the psychiatrist wants to see them every 3 months. If you just stop going, there may be good reasons for it, but to Social Security, it's going to look like you don't need them anymore, and thus you may have medically improved. So then what can happen is, if the sum total of the evidence that they collect does not paint a strong picture that you're still disabled, they would likely deny your case, which means that your benefits would end. So a couple things need to happen. One is, you'll get the letter, and in it, you'll have to read far enough into the letter to see that if you go into Social Security, or now with COVID, if you call Social Security within 10 days, that's 10 business days, or maybe it's 10 calendar days, but maybe go with 10 calendar days, then, and tell them you want them to continue the benefit while you're undergoing appeal. And appeal, of course, at the same time. And that's one of my messages to you today. Whenever you get a denial from Social Security on almost anything, it's important to appeal it. Everything is appealable. So go ahead and appeal, but in this case, do so quickly and make sure you do it within 10 days so that the benefit can continue while you're under appeal. And even if you get another denial and appeal again, they can keep the benefit going until a final resolution. Now, you do need to understand that if you are ultimately denied and you did keep that benefit going, the check, you may have to pay it back. It may be considered what's called an overpayment. And it would go back to probably when you were first denied on this review. But that's appealable. And so, again, you want to always appeal, even an overpayment. Okay, and you can contest, you wouldn't have the money at this point probably because you weren't, because, if you've ultimately been denied, the benefit will end, and then you won't have the money to pay them back. So you could certainly contest hardship at that point. Okay, so let's go back to talking about, what you can do to keep your case going, your benefits going. I do want to mention that we have a wonderful guide on our webpage, and I'm going to give you our webpage address. First of all, our organization's webpage is www.dlcv.org. And then if you add a / and the word Social Security, it will take you straight to our Social Security online resource. And there you'll find a host of articles and guides, incidentally, on the process of applying, appealing, but also there's a guide called What to Do to Keep Your Social Security Benefits in Place, which is what we're talking about today. And this guide goes over a lot of the same information. It actually discusses things we won't talk about today, but important for you to take a look at that if you're able, and kind of educate yourself. So at the Disability Law Center, we talk a lot about self-advocacy. We can't be with you when you fill out those papers, and we can't even represent you at a hearing if you need one. We can provide a lot of guidance, though. And this is all with an eye toward helping you understand the big picture of what you're needing to prove so that you can build your case better. Okay, now we've talked about reviewing our guide, updating your address. I want to talk now a little bit about what if you go to work. So you've gotten the benefit, you've gotten to a place where you want to attempt to work, and you're able to do that according to Social Security. In fact, when you get approved, you're going to get something called a ticket to work. It's a sheet of paper that comes in the mail. You can assign that ticket to work to an agency that will help you work. an agency that helps people with disabilities work in Virginia. It's called DARS, and it stands for Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. And they'll assign you a counselor. The counselor will work with you to create a plan of employment. And, you know, basically you can decide, you know, what kind of work you want to do. Is your goal to eventually work full-time and not need the benefit any longer? Or is it just to supplement your benefit? You can spell all that out. And basically, they'll provide you what's called benefits planning. And with that, they can help you make sure that you understand how wages will impact your benefit. And there's an awful lot of information about that, and it can be a little overwhelming. So it's important to get that direct sit-down help where somebody looks at how much you get, and then if you earn X amount, how will that Social Security check be affected? And then what other possibilities there are. You've probably heard the term work incentives. Well, it's true. Social Security has created a whole variety of work incentives that enable you to work, even though you have a disability. So I'm just going to give you one example. One of the work incentives is called an impairment-related work expense. Let's say you cannot drive to work because of your disability, and you need to be taken to work somehow, and there is a cost associated with that. And so if you can document that cost, then if you're earning a certain amount, they're going to deduct that cost of transportation from what you're earning. So you could actually work over the thresholds. And because of this impairment-related work expense, it could also be a medication that you need to work, or it could be equipment that you need to work. Okay? So those you learn about by attending a benefits planning session that DARS can order for you. And so other employment networks can do the same. An employment network, you'll find when you sign up for Ticket to Work, you're pointed to employment networks that will help you work. And DARS just happens to be one of them. But any one of them can help you learn about how to manage working and keeping a benefit, okay? But if you've had work efforts along the way and you're getting ready for a review, if you've done these work efforts with one of these agencies, they'll be documenting those efforts. So if you've had difficulties related to your disability, they will write that down. If you don't happen to be working with an agency, but have been going back to work on your own, it's important for you to document the reasons why you can't work over the threshold, which, by the way, is $1,260 gross a month currently. In 2021, that might go up a little bit. It goes up every year a little bit. So you need to document, you know, if you can only work 20 hours a week and earn $800, try to document why you couldn't work 40 hours a week. And it could be because you don't have the stamina to work an extra 20 hours a week. It could be that it sort of puts you over the top. Your productivity starts to decline after so many hours. You know, whatever the reasons are, be sure to document that. You know, write it down and keep a log of that. And then when it comes time for the review, if you are working, you can say, well, I can work, but I don't want you to get the impression that I can work substantially and earn over $1,260 a month, okay? I can only work part-time because my disability would prevent working beyond that. So then that becomes your challenge. If you are working and getting ready for a review, that you document why you're only working the hours you are, okay? And it's good to clarify those reasons to your doctor too, because once again, they're going to collect the doctor's records. And the doctor may write into the notes, patient relays that, after 3 hours of work, their concentration declines, their stamina declines, their productivity declines, so and so on, okay? Are there any questions at this point? I'll give you some time to compose those questions. And it doesn't have to be on this topic specifically. You may have other somewhat related questions. I will say this, that these work incentives that I mentioned earlier, they vary depending on which benefit you're getting. So for example, if you're getting SSI, the wages you earn are going to impact that benefit very differently than they would impact an SSDI benefit. So once again, a benefits analysis will clarify that. And in fact, all of the work incentives, some apply to both SSI and SSDI, some apply to only one or the other. And nobody can be expected to understand how all these apply and how to work this. So it's important to get help with that. Okay. Now we have advocates here who can answer questions about that, but lots of people have been specifically trained by Social Security to also help with these. So we would more than likely want to refer you for a benefits analysis so you get really good, accurate information. And I guess when it comes to being reviewed, what's important is that you follow the work incentive rules so that you don't lose your benefit, okay? Because people worry that, well, if I work, will that trigger a review earlier than I would have been reviewed otherwise? And that could be true if you're not following the rules carefully. So again, it's important to get a benefits plan with DARS or one of these employment networks that you're working with. And if you're not working with any agency, we can kind of tell you how to get connected with a way to get the benefits planning and make sure you better understand. There's a guide on Social Security's website, and their website is www.ssa.gov/redbook. And the Red Book provides updated information on how all of these work incentives work. And some people are more able than others to read and digest and then apply that information. Most people need to sit down with somebody and figure it out, because sort of the devil's in the details, and you don't want to misapply the rules. Okay, again, you've worked hard to get the benefit, and let's make sure you keep it as long as you need it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, there is one review I haven't talked about a lot. or at all. And it's a review called the age 18 redetermination. This occurs when a child has been on SSI all the way up through their 17th year. And then at the age of 18, they're going to be reviewed. It's not a medical review like if you're an adult, but it's a review to determine if you now meet the adult rules. So as a child, you met the child rules, but now at 18, you need to meet the adult rules. So the age 18 redetermination is a very critical turning point, and for somebody who's on the benefit. And it's very important that, again, documentation is current. It's, can be submitted to indicate, that now this person, that he or she is an adult, would not be able to work, because the rule is now whether they can work. And so it's something to keep in mind. If you know of people who are approaching 18 years old and they're on SSI, that they do need to understand they're going to go through that review. It's automatic. Okay. And of course, you can apply at 18 for the first time. Some children don't qualify because of the family resources, but once they turn 18, it's based on their resources, and presumably they would not have any. And if they didn't, then they could apply on their own record. It would likely be for SSI, and then that benefit would hopefully be approved. But you kind of have to go through the whole thing, making sure the evidence is current and so on. Another option that I'd like you to know about is the able account. So let's say you decide to start working and you're on SSI and Medicaid, because those two go together, or you're on SSDI and you happen to have some Medicaid as part of your health arrangement. Then you want to protect those benefits. And when you start earning money, if you don't need the money or you don't need all of it, you can put it into an able account. Or if you get an inheritance, or you sell a vehicle and you get $3,000-4,000, you need a place to put that to protect your public benefits. Now, SSDI is not a public benefit. That benefit is for people who paid into the system and had taxes taken out and to go into the retirement and disability system should they need it at some point. Okay, so those accounts are really very helpful. Now, somebody wants to know when the clinics are occurring. We're holding 4 of them this year, and they will be virtual. And we're going to be posting the next one probably not until November, because I think it's going to end up being in early December, and then about every 3 months after that, because we're hosting 4 this year. So check back to our website. If you want to be sure that you're added to the clinic list, you can call us and we can find a way to put you on a wait list. And then when it is posted, we'll let you know about it. But otherwise, just keep checking back, and it's listed right on our homepage. It's one of the floating banners. We'll tell you it's coming up. Usually we post at least 2-3 weeks in advance. And we have a limited number of slots, so it is important to kind of get yourself signed up for that. And the clinics are, as I've said, they're 60 to 90 minutes, private, virtual, and free, which is nice. And so we can get a lot done in those. I can review documents, paperwork, all kinds of stuff. and we can really delve in to find out what's keeping you from getting a benefit or keeping a benefit. And, you know, we can even talk work incentives and how they might work for you. So I hope that's helpful.